Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Dreamscape Horsemanship's Groundwork for Success series. Today we're back with Xerxes, a 5-year-old Percheron cross, and today we're going to bridle for the first time. Well, not the first time, but this is going to be that stage of the video. So in the previous videos, we took care of the surcingle, the saddle pad, the girth rope, obviously girth rope before the surcingle. Saddle pad can be kind of thrown in there wherever. But today we're going to talk about the bridle. So this is kind of the next step to all the tack that we're introducing to our horse. So if you followed the series, as I always say, the exercises before this one come in handy for this particular task. So by the time you get to this video, your horse should already know how to put his head down, on cue preferably, or just be relaxed enough that he holds his head down. And you should be able to play with his mouth, his ears, his poll, his face, so on and so forth, because you need to be able to manipulate all those areas in order for a bridle to be successful. So the first stage is always to make sure that they're okay with all your, like, just to kind of double check all your groundwork. So rub his face, his nostrils. I always kind of stick a finger in the nostril, not that that has anything to do with bridling, but it kind of gets them used to you handling them. Finger in both sides of the mouth, great. And I should be able to come up here, play with his poll, play with his ears. Whoops, a finger accidentally went in his ear. Same with this side. So you want to make sure that all this is good. Because if you can't do any of this, you're not going to be able to get a bridle on this horse, at least not without kind of going way over the threshold and kind of ruining all that relaxation that we've been working so hard to build up through this entire series. So once you can do all that, you pretty much repeat that with the bridle. So I just kind of hold this as a Western headstall. So I just kind of hold it in the middle like that, and we're going to do the same thing. Now I got to be careful because this is a full cheek snaffle. I don't want those little cheek pieces to poke them in the eye. But same thing, we're going to rub, 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 rub. Oh, found a little sticky spot, so I'm going to play right there a little bit more with the bridle. Straps over the eyes, but be gentle because you don't want to hurt him. You just basically want to make sure that with the clanging of the bit and everything part of the bridle, that he's going to be perfectly fine with it, and he already knows the drill, so he's lowering his head. And if he's fine with that, I'm going to work on lowering his head, but he's doing that for me. So, to refresh from the other video that we did about lowering the head, if he would bring his head up, is basically what I do is, because we use rope halters, you've got that little knot on the bottom. And I simply put 2 fingers there, my index finger and my middle finger, and I just put some downward pressure there. And the second he drops his head, I lower, or I take that pressure away. So dropping, dropping. So it's kind of a give and take, and now he's going to eat because his head's way down there. And then my second cue is on the pole. So again, I should be able to put my hand up here, lightly push, and his head should drop all the way down. We've been working on this over the course of a couple episodes, or a couple sessions, so I can grab a different horse at some point as well, to kind of have how to teach all that. But this series is more to show you guys how to introduce the cues, and we will do like a troubleshooting series for each of the exercises in the future when we run into a horse that has some trouble with those exercises. But generally, we don't have those issues in our program because we do these exercises. So as long as they're done correctly, we don't end up running into any troubleshooting issues. So I unfortunately don't have many video clips that I can use to show that process, because it's the way we train them keeps them this relaxed, and we just generally don't run into any issues to where we need to make a troubleshooting video. So we'll see what we can do for the viewers that are following this series, because I get it that it's kind of hard to learn when the horse does everything perfectly, but it is what it is. So, obviously, if you can rub your hands all over his face, he's getting a little antsy because of the flies. Hey. If you can rub your hands all over, you can rub the bridle over, he'll lower his head. Now is the actual bridling part. So, I make sure they have their head lowered. I generally put one hand up here. If it's a super tall horse, you can stand on a stool as long as your horse is okay with that and it's a safe, sturdy stool or mounting block. But ultimately, because the horse lowers his head, you shouldn't have to do anything else. So I'm going to hold here, I'm going to take the bridle, I'm going to reach around to my one hand, I'm going to take one side. I'm simply going to try and loop his nose, going to get him to bring his head back over here. Basically going to try and scoop his nose, and I'm just going to hold that there so that I can reach around with my right hand. So this is about where I want to be, for the most part. I've got the bridle secured in my right hand so that my left hand now can come down, scoop up that bit. I'm just going to reposition him. I'm going to put my hand there, and I'm just going to hold. And now I'm going to stick my thumb in his mouth, and we're going to try and get him to open his mouth a little bit. And then I'm going to slide that in there in one smooth movement. And now, from here, right ear, left ear. Done. So, the reason we always go with the right ear is because by the time I have the right ear on there, the bridle is relatively secure. When my hand's up here and I've got the right ear hooked in that bridle, I can use the head stall to pull his head back towards me if we get in a little bit of a fuss. And then all I have to do, it's a lot easier to scoop that left ear in there than it is that right ear, especially on a taller horse. So I always do the right ear first because my hand is already right here. My hand is already right there by his right ear. I realize I'm wearing black gloves, it's a black bridle, black horse. Probably should have grabbed a different bridle for this demo, but it is what it is. So because my right hand is already right there, it's just one smooth movement usually because you've already scooped up their nose in the bit to just pop that right ear right in there. And then again, when that right ear is in there, it's on his head, you've got a decent amount of control with the halter and the head stall to redirect his head back towards you. So the only thing left to do is to bring this throat latch around, which is pretty straightforward, and pop it in there. Make sure you have it properly fitted, which is a different video, but we'll run through it right now. So with a snaffle bit, I like having one, maybe 1.5, 2-ish wrinkles on the side of his cheek. So this bit kind of gives me, he's a little bit of a chunky boy, so it kind of gives me 2 wrinkles, and that's about as high as I want it to be for this particular horse. He's got a relatively bigger head on him because he's a draft cross, so I don't necessarily want to go any tighter. It's tight enough that he shouldn't be able to get his tongue over top of the bit, but it's loose enough that he's not going to be uncomfortable. If you see the horse is gaping their mouth a little bit, or the cheeks look like they're really far stretched, just let it down a hole on one cheek or the other. Sometimes you might have to let it down on both cheeks. I try to prefer the buckle being as even on both cheeks as I possibly can. It's a comfort thing for me, it's a symmetry thing, and it does seem to allow the bridle to fit a little bit nicer on the horses. That could just be my thought, but it seems to work pretty well for us. The brow band stops the bridle from slipping too far back, and I prefer to have it about a finger width below their ear, so that way they can still fully rotate their ears back and forth, and then obviously you can slip their ears under the bridle. But at the same time, it should fit nicely on their forehead. I prefer being able to get a finger or two kind of in there, because if it's super right tight against their forehead, again, could cause a little bit of discomfort. You don't want to do that when you're riding your horse, especially with the young colts. He has no idea what a bridle is yet. He doesn't really know how to respond to one, so if I have one super tight that doesn't fit him properly, it's going to be uncomfortable, and we're going to end up turning this into a bridling problem rather than this right here where he doesn't even seem to care that it's on his head. The throat latch stops your bridle from going too far forward because it hooks behind their cheek, and he's super good with his head down cue now. You should be able to get about 3 to 4 finger width between your horse's cheek and that throat latch. So I can get about 3 fingers, but I have a halter on underneath the bridle, so without the halter I could probably get 4 fingers. That's about as tight as I want to go. Unless I notice that my bridle's slipping, then I might tighten it up a hole. but at the same time, you want to have that loose enough that as I teach him his lateral flexion, his vertical flexion, once we get to that point, which is probably about a month away, when I start teaching him his vertical flexion, he has to be able to give at the pole and under his cheek there, and you don't want that strap being too tight because he won't be able to properly give to that pressure in a relaxed sort of way. And then a full cheek doesn't really need it, but I do have a curb strap on this one. I won't ride in a snaffle bit without a curb strap. It doesn't actually serve the purpose that the curb chain on a curb bit does. That allows the bit to work off leverage. The curb strap on a snaffle bit is to stop you, or to hopefully aid in stopping the bit from coming through the horse's mouth when you're pulling on one rein. If they happen to gape their mouth, hopefully that bit's not going to pull all the way through. Now, because he's in a full cheek snaffle right now, you've got the bars on either side of that bit that stop that from happening, but to have him get used to a piece of equipment, I have it thrown on there. Probably don't need it though, because it's getting caught under the bars of the bit. And as for mouthing with the bit, generally when you put a bridle on a horse for the first time and you put anything in their mouth for the first time, they're going to play with it. It's pretty much inevitable. Some horses chomp on it for a few seconds and then they're done, like him, who doesn't even seem to care after it's in their mouth. Other horses will chomp on it for 3 or 4 sessions before they actually get used to feeling that bit in their mouth. And that is perfectly fine. They're going to do that. And honestly, I don't pay any attention to it. If it happens for a long period of time, like after we ground drive, after the horse knows how to respond to the bridle, or if they're chomping on it in such a way that looks like they're uncomfortable, then I start looking into why. Change of bit size maybe, or maybe they need their teeth done. The catch with a lot of these young horses is he's 5, so we're getting to the kind of the end of him losing his teeth, but on any of the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, between 2 and 4 years old, their teeth change drastically. They're losing baby teeth, they're growing in adult teeth, the teeth are changing in their mouth, so they could already be a little uncomfortable, so you want to make sure that their bridle fits them as best as it can, and that of course you have the appropriate dental work done already on your horse. And make sure their wolf teeth are removed. And then basically taking it off is going to be the same process. So we're going to start with the throat latch, taking that off. We're going to bring our hand back up to that right ear, ask him to lower his head, and we're going to go in reverse. We're going to start by taking it off the right ear, or the left ear, sorry, because right here, you can see I still have a decent amount of control with his head. I can still pull it this way. I can use my hip and belt buckle to kind of push his head back to the right. I can bring him back to the left. I'm just going to push down a little bit with my right arm there, get him to drop his head back down. So when it's over that right ear, we still have a decent amount of control. So I'm going to ask him to drop his head again so we can finish off the process. So now I'm going to take it in my left hand, going to loop it off that right ear, and I'm just going to let him drop the bit out of his mouth. I don't rush them with that part, because if it bangs their teeth, they're generally going to be a little bit more trigger or gun shy when you go to put the bridle on the next time. Because of course, if you were to put that in your mouth and smash it against your teeth, it's probably going to smart a little bit too. And especially on those younger horses where their teeth are changing, they're already going to be a little sensitive in their mouth. You don't want that big bulky bit to smash against their teeth. So I always hold it there and kind of wait for them to react and spit the bit out themselves. And sometimes we could be standing there for a good 30 seconds before they really actually start to drop that out of their mouth, especially if they're really comfortable with wearing it. So this video today was pretty short, so that's basically introducing a bridle to a horse. And again, if I ever come across a horse that has some bridling issues, we will do a troubleshooting video for you. So thanks for watching, and we will see you guys with the next episode.